YouTube Buzzik going. The Goat House is back. Heading into NFL Week 7, we got bold predictions. You guys got bold predictions, actually. You guys send them in through our Twitter every single week. I look through them all. Appreciate everyone for sending them in, and I just see which ones stand out, pick out about 10 here, and we break them down, see how spicy of takes they are. Once again, appreciate everyone for playing along. If you want to get involved more, go to our Twitter. There's a link down below. Keeping you guys involved a ton. We got constant live NFL updates, talking during live games. We got a Thursday night ball game tonight. Should be an interesting one, actually. Broncos-Browns. So join us for all that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We got full NFL content here, full coverage. Join us. Let's go on to the bold predictions. First one, Kyle Harsek. Could be Harcheck. I'm pronouncing everybody's names wrong. I think I say this every week. I apologize. I'm not the name guy. I'm the football guy. So Goff outperforms Stafford in yards and touchdowns, but still manages to lose in a revenge game. This is a good one. Good-looking one here. I could see this happening. I can see, in two ways. I can see, maybe the Rams coming in this game, and, they are a pass-first team, so that's why it's a little bold. But, I don't think they're going to take it easy, but I kind of can see them letting off the gas a little bit at some point. Therefore, Goff maybe has more attempts. And I could see Goff having a pretty good game against his old team here against McVay. So I do think it's realistic. Another way is late in the game where the Rams feel comfortable. They got to win right now. They're just running the ball, running clock. The Lions get a bunch of cracks at, late points, late reps, and Goff is kind of constantly airing it out because they can't really run the ball. So I can see it in multiple ways. That's a tough one. See where I want to. I'm gonna say warm. I almost went realistic. I do think it's realistic, but I'm gonna say it's kind of warm. I do think Goff, in terms of, if you say he outplays Stafford, just outplays him just straight up, then that might be a little less realistic. It might be a little more bold. But stats wise, I can see, which isn't everything, I can see it kind of happening. That's a good one. I'm actually curious about that game. I'm wondering if because the Lions have played some pretty good teams close. They struggled with the Bengals last week. The Rams, their defense hasn't really seemed the same. What if the Lions and Jared Goff can make things interesting? I'm curious about that. Next up, K1 since day one. Zach Ertz puts up 100 yards first game as a Cardinal and breaks the streak of the Cardinals for not having a tight end over 100 yards since 1970. So, the Cardinals got a pretty wild streak going on there. And, recently that makes sense because they, a lot of spread looks. Don't really feature a tight end a whole bunch, but actually this year they were using Max Williams quite a bit. He was actually, if you combine the tight ends and the receivers, he was actually third in snaps before he got hurt, even ahead of Christian Kirk, a receiver that they like a lot, obviously. So the tight end's being used a little more, some different looks, and maybe a reason why the Cardinals are so tough to game plan for. So therefore, they could use their tight end a lot, like they have been, or not a lot, but more than they have in the past, or people are used to. And Zach Ertz, a pretty good tight end. 100 yards, it's pretty specific on the stats. I don't like the specific stats one. I like this one because it's interesting. How much is Ertz going to play right away? How is he going to be with this type of offense with Kyler Murray? He might get a lot more targets, if they're going to air the ball out. Another factor is they're playing the Texans. Now, I don't think the Cardinals are going to take it easy on the Texans, especially early, but they may get up and then kind of, let's see how Ertz fits with us. Let's get him going. Let's get him reps to get so he's he gets his feet wet and he's ready for the next week. So they could potentially kind of not force it to him, but almost. I can actually see that. So that's why it's a pretty interesting one. 100 yards specifically, though. It's another one. I'm gonna say warm. I was close to going hot because 100 yards and the Cardinals offense at tight end. But again, I can see that where they get up and they kind of just try to get Ertz going here in game one. I think it's possible. That's a pretty good one there. But, again, if it was Ertz maybe has an impact game, plays very well, very productive, then I think it's way more realistic, specifically 100 yards, makes it a little more bold. It's a pretty good one there. Andrew Cameron. Derrick Henry has a career day, setting a new career best in rushing yards. I like this one a lot. A lot of people, I think we've had one on here in the past, maybe multiple times. Derrick Henry this week breaks the rushing record, single game, which is held by Adrian Peterson, was a 296, 297. And that's a good one too, because at any given time, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Derrick Henry. Against the Chiefs defense, worst run defense, it's going to be Derrick Henry. But I like this one because he has a career day setting a new career best in rushing yards. So beating his own record single game. What is that? That is 250 yards. So he's got to get 251 yards here. Man, it's a go. I expect, maybe it's bold of me, but I expect Derrick Henry to get 200 or more yards here. What he's able to do. The Chiefs, that struggling defense, specifically stopping the run. The Titans can't overthink things. Just go pound the football. There is a chance where the Chiefs will stack the box. There's a chance they stack the box and the Titans will be like, all right, you can throw on the Chiefs too. We can throw on the Chiefs. On top of it, they're stacking the box. Let's throw, and just, do they completely abandon the run? That'd be overthinking things. I don't think they do that because Derrick Henry is the Tennessee Titans right now. I know they have other good players, but it's really that's the guy right there. So I think he has over 200 yards rushing. If this was, he something like that, I think somebody else sent that in. That's a good one as well. But this is interesting because if there's a game for Derrick Henry to beat his own record, this is the game. I think it's still kind of hot though. 250. I think if he's getting close to that, they're probably up by a pretty good amount. Do they take it easy then? Do they take him out? They're not really a team to do that though. That's a good one. I don't know. I think it's hot. I expect him, and again, maybe bold to me, but I expect him to get 200, 210, somewhere around there. I expect it, unless, the Titans could go all out in the passing game. It's definitely a possibility here. Solely for sports and memes, Eagles win by double digits over Vegas, over the Raiders. I think it's an interesting one because this week that game is very interesting. If you watch our picks, we were pretty split on it. I took the Raiders, and Danny, who's been good picking both these teams this year, took the Eagles actually, and Pete was right with him there. So it's an interesting game, and I think it's kind of a boomer bust game for the Eagles. I think they can dominate this game, or I think they can just disappoint. And I talked about it in multiple videos this week. The key for them is pounding the football, run Ertz, run Sanders, and I think they'll actually win if they do that. And they can look pretty good. On top of that, the Raiders are random. They're inconsistent. It's hard to figure out, are they actually better without Gruden? Was last week how they're going to be? So it's again, they're inconsistent every other week. So combining those two things I just said on the Eagles side and the Raiders side, the Eagles could win by a lot. I did pick the Raiders though. I don't fully trust the Eagles. I do trust I don't trust the Eagles to pound the football like they should, and I do trust the Raiders to score on the Eagles. So that's why I picked the Raiders. But I also think this is kind of I'll say this. I think it's hot, but it's realistic at the same time. I'm picking the Raiders to win. I don't feel super confident about that. Like I said, I can argue the Eagles, but I could see it. I could see it being one of those games where it's like the Raiders win and it's probably close, or the Eagles win and it's not so close. I can actually see that. So it's an interesting one there. I feel like it's like a boom or bust game for the Eagles. It's kind of that for Sanders. If Sanders gets the ball a lot, I think he's going to have a boom game. It's going to be a big, crazy game probably. If he doesn't get the ball a lot, it's a bust game for him, obviously, and it's probably one for the Eagles as well. So, and Ertz can do a good job on the ground. Can I trust Ertz with his accuracy? So it's a big game for Jalen Hurts. It's a big game for Sirianni and his play calling. And if Sanders gets the opportunity, it's a big game for him too. So another one. There's a lot of mystery in that one. What are we gonna expect? So I'm excited for a game like that for sure. JR Swish. It's an interesting one. The first part, he says, not really too bold. Now, I do think it's pretty bold, though. I think a lot of people would agree with me there that it is pretty bold. But it's interesting because, JR Swish says Dearness Johnson, who is now the starting, he is the starting running back of the Browns, but they also have Demetric Felton, who is he a running back, is he a receiver? He's got more opportunities catching the ball for the Browns so far. I graded him as a running back that can also play receiver out of UCLA, so phenomenal talent. But Dearness Johnson rushes for 160 yards and scores 2 touchdowns. I think that's pretty bold, so it's interesting he says not that bold, and people may say he's crazy to call that not that bold, but it is interesting. That's why I like this one. It's interesting because the Browns are so good at running the football. They are a run-first team. They're so damn good at it. The blocking schemes, the running schemes, they're very good in terms of run blocking, and they know how to win in that category. And we're used to Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt going off. I mean, this one, it's the more I'm talking, it is pretty piping. It is pretty damn bold. But what if it's not really? I mean, Nick Chubb's fantastic. All right, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, they're fantastic. But what if it's not really the running back? I mean, it is. Those guys are good. But what if Dearness Johnson does this because the Browns are just so good at running? It's like, well, it looks like anybody can run on the Browns. That doesn't mean, if that ends up being the case, which I can see that, it's kind of where I'm getting my point. That doesn't mean Chubb and Kareem Hunt aren't really good. They're very good, obviously. I still think it's piping. 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a lot, because Nick Chubb doesn't even do that a lot because he has Kareem Hunt. But now Kareem Hunt isn't there. Maybe they don't want to give Demetric Felton the ball a lot. Maybe they want to give Dearness Johnson, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb's carries. It's an interesting one to think about. I mean, what if it's just the Browns? You are playing the Broncos, though. I think it's pretty piping at the same time. But it's interesting to think about. What if the Browns are just that good? There's teams like that. Like the 49ers have always had some random running backs in there, and it doesn't really matter who's in there. I know the Vikings have really good running backs, but it seems like their running scheme. It seems like next guy up's probably going to play well. So there's teams like that. The Ravens are kind of like that as well. So we'll see. Maybe we learn a little bit more about the Browns and their running game tonight. That's actually tonight. It's gonna be an interesting game. A lot of backups for the Browns. Can the Broncos figure it out? A lot of storylines here. Eric Bunzall. One of those might be right. If they're both wrong, then yeah, I gotta get my shit together. Zach Wilson turns his 4 interceptions into 4 touchdowns this weekend against the Patriots. So. This is the first game of the year where it's the second matchup. So the Patriots and Jets already played each other last time. Zach Wilson had a terrible game, threw 4 interceptions. I believe, if I remember, 1 interception was tipped by his own receiver, but then there was some really bad ones by Zach Wilson. There was one that was, I think it was the 4th one that was extremely bad. It was very bad. So 4 interceptions. So instead of 4 interceptions, 4 touchdowns this week. Now I don't think he throws 4 interceptions again. I wish somebody would have said that one. Maybe they did by the time I'm recording this, because I just thought of that now. That'd be a pretty good one. Zach Wilson throws 4 interceptions again. I'd probably put that on the piping side. I mean, that's bold to me, not to go hot, but to go piping. I just don't think he does it again. You had the bye week too, but you had the experience. You get the chance to game plan for this that you're already kind of used to in a way. But I mean, the Patriots, it just mattered to them giving the same looks and playing that tight in coverage and getting pressure on them for it to happen again. But I don't think he throws 4 interceptions. But 4 touchdowns. I guess it doesn't. He didn't say passing touchdowns. Turns his 4 interceptions into 4 touchdowns. It could mean that, but he didn't. He didn't say that. So he could rush for 1 and throw for 3. That's a little more realistic if there's 4. I still think it's piping. Almost went hot. I don't think he gets 4 touchdowns. 3, the difference between 3 and 4 is pretty big difference, even though it's 1. Because he can run for 3 touchdowns. He can run for 1 and throw for 2. I don't know if that happens. I'm not predicting that to happen, but that's more. It's way different than being piping, So, what if he pulls it off? That'd be pretty promising. That make everyone feel good, give him some confidence, because the team that it just feels like a few weeks ago. I mean, it was more than that, but he just threw 4 interceptions, had the worst game of his start first year against, and he turns around those 4 touchdowns. That'd be pretty damn good. I think he can clean up the interceptions in those the decision-making plays, and he'll have more production in terms of yards and touchdowns and have the more big plays. I am not worried about that at all moving forward, whether it's next year or the year after. I need him to just relax a little bit, not panic too early, stop throwing off the back foot unless it's absolutely not necessary, but mainly hit the layup throws just a little above the layup throws, intermediate throws, wide open guys. He's got to hit those. Those scare me because those you can tweak a little bit, but over a course of a career, it's rare to see those all of a sudden like he's hitting all of them, because you should hit all of those. You go from missing a ton to hitting all. That's kind of rare. So. But it's still a small sample size, so we can't really judge yet, obviously. So I need to see him start to hit those. That's kind of my worry. Not so much he'll fix the decision making, he'll fix the footwork, he's a little sloppy. He'll have more big plays. That's for sure. So Big test here for Zach Wilson, round 2 against the New England Patriots. A big Uncle Andy. The Chiefs and Titans each outscore. See, I can pronounce Big Uncle Andy. That one's no problem. Chiefs and Titans each outscore the total of tonight's Broncos-Browns game. That's an interesting one. So I had a final score. I had an somewhat odd final score of 19-17 for the Bronx, the Bronx and the Browns. Apparently, we're going with here. So what is that? 36. Yeah, 36 total. And so the Chiefs and the Titans both have to score more than 36. Well, that's really not his point here, not with my score, but I'm just kind of comparing here. So I had 36 in the total of Broncos-Browns, so that's low. That's low there, and I think it could be 17-14, which I mean that's a difference there. I know it's not too far up, but that's a difference. And then I had the Chiefs and the Titans. I had 37-34, so I had one team not scoring over my total for Broncos-Browns, but it's so close. This is a good one. This is a good one here because I can see the Broncos-Browns. That's the problem, though. My prediction for the Chiefs-Titans was 37-34. I think that's probably the max. I kind of went for the max there. Could it be a 40-37? It's possible. Very possible. But the Broncos-Browns, 19-17. I could have bet on the max on that one, too. It could be a 14-13. It could be a 13-10. Something like that. I think this is one of those ones. I'm trying to think here. This is a really good one. I mean, the over/under could be 20. Yeah, I mean, it could be 27 on the Broncos-Browns, and then I think that's for sure. This is a really good one. I was gonna say it's one of those hot. It's kind of hot, but it's realistic at the same time. But the more I'm thinking about it, and kind of, we're gonna put it right in the middle. We're gonna put warm. That's interesting to think about that. Both the Titans and the Chiefs, each one team, but both can score more themselves than the total of the Broncos-Browns. I like the Broncos and the Browns defenses for this game, and they have really good games. The Browns are missing a lot of guys, so that kind of assists in it being low scoring. The Broncos have been struggling offensively, but they can get things going. It's a matter of running the ball more. That's a really good one. You kind of stumped me on that one on what's going to happen here. It's one of those that's pretty damn realistic at the same time. Bray, sad Texans fan, he's got to update his record, if that's what that is. Tua has his worst game, and the Dolphins pulled the trigger on Deshaun before next week's game. It's a pretty good one, too. We had a recent video breaking this all down with the whole Deshaun Watson news. Well, I guess it's a two-parter. Tua has his worst game, and what's the chances? I don't think he's going to have his worst game. I think it's a two-parter because it's piping that I think, or maybe hot, that he has his worst game against the Falcons defense. If he has his worst game, they're going to have to do. He might not be it. I don't think he has his worst game. The Dolphins pulled the trigger on Deshaun Watson. We'll say this, Tua struggles a little bit. The Dolphins struggle on top of it. Dolphins pulled the trigger on Deshaun Watson before next week's game. I'm kind of in the I think it might be realistic. It might be going warm there. How much is smoke between the Deshaun Watson? What is the reason to smoke it, though? Maybe blow it up. We talked about that a little bit. I just don't think it happens this week. People are blowing that up. It could happen next week. It's very possible. Go realistic. It's interesting to think about. We've got a couple that are very similar here. The Sports Blitz, Darnold has another terrible game, causing the Panthers to go all in a trade for Deshaun Watson next week. Well, Darnold having another terrible game, I think, is realistic. Playing a good defense in the Giants, he's been struggling. That doesn't mean he's guaranteed to have a terrible game. He can have an okay game for sure. A good enough game, that's definitely possible. But to think he has a bad game, I think that's realistic to think that. But that causes the Panthers to go all in a trade for Deshaun Watson next week. It came out earlier that Matt Rule said that they're not. Well, he said he's not looking into trade. That's what I thought was interesting. He's not in talking to Deshaun Watson or anything like that, and they believe in Sam Darnold. Well, I take what he says serious. He didn't say they, but still at the same time, I kind of take what he said serious. But they were rumored on Deshaun Watson early on in the process, off season, and apparently Deshaun Watson was willing to play for the Panthers. A lot of teams he wouldn't play for. So that's interesting. But I heard the Panthers kind of went cold. I heard two stories because they really believe in Darnold. They already got Darnold. They're ready to go. And then another story was because they don't really trust the whole off-the-field situation with Watson. Maybe it was both. They didn't trust it, and they went and got Darnold. Man, I think they should honestly consider it. I don't really know the details of what the Texans for sure and what they want. Next week, I think it's pretty piping for it to happen next week, for them to go completely cold on Sam Darnold. For him that bad of a game where Matt Rule changed his mind. I think it's pretty piping. I do think the Panthers should have interest, and they're not afraid to trade, and they're not afraid to all of a sudden get involved in things like that. So who knows? RJ, Eagles swoop in last minute and bid a higher offer than the Dolphins to land Deshaun Watson. I'm going to say that's piping as well. It sounded like, we don't know this for sure. It hasn't been confirmed, but we've heard it multiple times that it doesn't really sound like Deshaun Watson wants to play for the Eagles. Yeah, maybe with the coaching staff, how they're doing over there, maybe that makes sense. The Eagles they've been a little weird, what kind of contracts they're dealing out, pushing a lot of money back. So and a lot of guys out, in and out, guys dealing with anxiety, couple guys in the last multiple years. So there is a buildup of what makes the Eagles maybe not the most appealing spot. This is not, this is me just thinking of why somebody would think that. If I'm a player, I'm not, so I can't really say, but I wouldn't really have a problem with specific teams. I think most of us agree with that, but maybe all of that has to do with Deshaun Watson not wanting to play there. We've heard that. I think the Eagles would be interested for sure. I mean, they've cleared space kind of quietly, so you'd think they were doing it for Watson. So, they got to think they're a top landing spot, and I think they would want him. But, it really falls on if Watson wants to play there or not. We don't know for sure. It sounded like he didn't. It sounded like he would much rather play other places. So, for that reason, I'll say piping. I think, if another team's going to swoop in, maybe Washington football team for Watson, because they might be they feel like they're a quarterback away. Their defense is struggling right now, though, as well. But it's interesting to think about for sure. We'll have you guys covered more on this as news comes out on Twitter, and then we have videos as well. We already have one, and trade deadline's interesting. We got a video on that. We're going to have more as well for sure on that. So that wraps up this week's Bold Predictions. Thanks, everyone, for playing along. Really appreciate it. Check out our Twitter to get more involved. Link down below. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Full NFL coverage here. Can't wait for tonight's game. We'll have you covered again. Live talk during that on Twitter. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.